So you should have just now completed your group and trying to complete this. So now this is just the explanation on how things work here. So that first one, I think it asks, it says, you enter the park and realize you're starving. Conveniently, there's a food truck station at 00. How far is the food truck from the entrance? Well, this is easy. So since it is on a horizontal line, I'm literally going to count from the entrance all the way over to 00. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So your answer should be 8 meters. That should be your answer to number 1. It's pretty simple because it's horizontal distance, right? Pretty simple, okay? On number 2 here, it says, from the food truck, you want to go to the milk jug. Your friend walks straight to the right and down, and you walk diagonally. Who walks farther, and how do you know? Okay, because if you look here, so we're going from the food truck to the milk jug, right? So I'm going from where the food truck is and the milk jug. So right now, if you look, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 8 and 4, that means your friend walked a total of 12 meters, okay? You ended up walking diagonally. So if I walk diagonally here, I know that the distance from point A to point B is going to be a lot faster than walking the actual right angle of that. So that would be your answer to the first one. Who walks the farthest and how do you know? The direct distance is faster. On the second part, it says how much farther, and we need to show your work. So your friend walked 8 and 4. So 8 plus 4 is going to give me 12 meters. Well, now I need to figure out how far we walked, and we're going to use Pythagorean theorem like we just learned. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and b are your two legs. This is my 90-degree angle, so that's my hypotenuse, which is my c. So I'm going to be finding the hypotenuse. So 8 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. 8 times 8 is going to give you 64. 4 times 4 is going to end up giving you 16. 64, or I don't need to do this squared. 64 plus 16 is going to end up giving me 80. And then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So when I take the square root of 80, that's going to actually end up giving me a decimal, which is roughly 8.94 meters. So right now, if you look, 8.94 and 12, I actually went shorter distance here. So ladies and gentlemen, 8.94 should be your answer there on that one, okay? All right, so let's look at number 3. So on the third one here, it says, later you and your friends decided to go from the lazy pool to the Ferris wheel. So here's the lazy pool, here's the Ferris wheel. So on the first one, it says, what is the horizontal distance between those two attractions? So I'm gonna go horizontally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces, okay? And then it says, what is the vertical distance? So that is gonna end up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 is gonna be your vertical distance. Now it says, what is the distance between the lazy pool and the Ferris wheel? So the shortest path between those two. So I'm gonna be finding the shortest distance between those two, which is my horizontal distance. So if you guys look, this is leg, and this is a leg. So that's what my 2a squared plus b squared is going to be in Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to be using Pythagorean theorem to find my hypotenuse. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 6 and 5, so 6 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. 6 times 6 is 36. 5 times 5 is 25. So that's 50 and 11, so that'll be 61. And then I want to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of 61 is going to roughly give me 7.8 meters, around about. So there would be 7.8 meters in between the lazy pool and the Ferris wheel, okay? So pretty much you're just finding the difference between these two. So basically you're taking the x coordinates and finding the distance between those, and then taking the y coordinates and finding the distance and using Pythagorean theorem. So the way you can think of it is I'm doing x1 minus x2 to get my distance, and then I'm doing y1 minus y2 to get my distance. And you would only end up using this whenever you have two of them that are really far apart. So you're finding the distance between those two and using Pythagorean theorem. Let's switch over to my quick note. So on my quick notes here, if I want to find the distance between 2 points diagonally, I'm going to use something called Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to be using a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to find the distance of A and B here, and it's going to end up giving me that C value. So for instance, if I have a X and Y coordinate here, okay, you could draw this if you want to. I have this point here, I have this point here. I want to find the horizontal distance and the vertical distance. So I'm going to do x1 minus x2. I'm going to do y1 minus y2, and then that's going to end up giving me my hypotenuse if I want to find Pythagorean theorem there, okay? And so now I'm just going to plug that in. So this would end up being A or B. So remember the two legs are A or B, and I'll plug that in and I'll end up finding it. So for instance, I'm going to give you an example just real quick. So let's have 2 points. Let's say that this is 2, 3. So 3 over, let's say this is going to be 5, 7, okay? So over and up. So 2 to 5 is going to give me 3. 7 to 3 is going to end up giving me 4. And then when I use Pythagorean theorem, 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. 9 plus 16 gives me c squared. That'll be 25. Take the square root of both sides. C is going to end up giving me 5. So C is equal to 5. And there's your quick notes, ladies and gentlemen. So anytime you want to find distance diagonally between 2 points, I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem to use that, okay? Good luck with your check for understanding questions. Let me know if you have any questions.